Hey, Simon, it's so cool to connect with you again, man. This is wonderful having you here today. I'm really excited. Look, let me just start off so I don't read a bio or talk through that. Let me toss it to you, man. Tell the folks who is Simon, and more importantly, what in the heck are you up to these days with this whole concept about be brilliant?
My whole purpose is to spark brilliance in individuals, systems, and nations to create sustainable results. Today, I am in London getting ready to head to Milan. A client will pick me up in Milan and drive me into Switzerland. And my goal is to equip over 100 businesses that I'm going to have a full day with to equip them with the tips, tools, and techniques on how to create customers for life.
Wow, how to create customers for life, man. I love that. Talk about this whole concept about be brilliant and what that's about. A number of folks have had some setbacks in their lives. Some other folks have had some challenges. Other folks are on the comeback right now and they're doing really, really well, but they still want to be brilliant no matter what level they're at. Take a moment and talk about that.
So, when I talk about being brilliant, it first starts with understanding that average is over. Average is done, average is history. And if you're going to do anything, it has to be brilliant, it has to be excellent, it has to be the best version of yourself. I reached a point professionally years ago when I was working for a Fortune 50 company, and I knew I had more potential within me than what was being released. So I happened to be talking to one of my mentors one day, and he asked me how I was doing. And I said to him, if I had white skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, it would be very easy for me to succeed here in America. And he said, you're stuck in your mind and body thinking that the pigmentation of your skin limits you from being all that you possibly can be. He said when he and his wife first got married, they adopted two young African-American boys. He was white. And he said, we've been telling them what they could be instead of what they couldn't be. And he says, I'm telling you, you were born to be brilliant. You weren't born to fit in. And Shay, when he said it, it was just like, boom, the 4th of July fireworks went off in me because no one had ever validated or told me that I was born to be brilliant. So literally for the next 7 years, I started on this journey of trying to understand what does it mean that you're brilliant? What does it mean you have brilliance? And I came across some research that absolutely changed my life. And it's from Dr. Howard Gardner, a professor of education at Harvard. Dr. Gardner, he and his team of researchers did an interesting study over a 20 plus year period. And what they discovered is that children up until the age of 4 are operating at the genius level. This same group of children were studying in their early 20s, and only 10% were still operating at the genius, or what I now call the brilliance level. And in their late 20s, early 30s, only 2% were still operating at the genius or brilliance level. So the question that I have, like you had, and everyone that's listening to us, is where did this genius or brilliance go? It didn't go anywhere, but it became buried by a society that says color within the lines, sit down, give it back, you can't do this. And the more a person continues to hear what they can't do, where they can't go, and who they can't become, there's a neurological path that is created in the brain that causes people to shut down. So what happens is people have this potential, they have this insight, they have this genius, and they show up at a place called work. And what I've discovered in almost 18 years of this work is that your brilliance, that thing that allows you to be your most brilliant self, is released in an environment where you're celebrated rather than tolerated. And when you're in this environment where you're celebrated rather than tolerated, that environment invites you to be a vitamin, not just an aspirin. And when you understand how to be a vitamin, not just an aspirin, you understand that I am not here to compete against you, but I'm here to complete you as I become my most brilliant self.
My most brilliant self. I love that. And as I was thinking and listening here, I was wondering about what is this whole concept that you have around build a vision? Because I like to be brilliant. You kind of started off that way, but take a moment to talk about that build a vision around being brilliant.
So when I build a vision about around being brilliant, what I recognize the picture that I see is the picture that I aspire to be. So I cannot become something if I don't first see it. But then when I first see it, I have to write it, I have to speak it, I have to become it, and then I have to receive it. So for every person that is thinking about how do I make this vision of brilliance come alive, what do I see? Write it down. What do I now say that connects to what I see? How do I begin to act it out or believe it? Acting it out or believing it is the resources, the mentors, the coaches, the actual doing of the work is taking it from zero to where it possibly can become, and then actually receiving it as if it's going to happen.
Mm. Now, is that the part where you start to transform into your potential, or is that kind of a separate area? So I know I got to see it before I see it, or I never see it. When does this whole transformation process take place, where I kind of step into it, and how does that work?
So the transformation takes place when once you identify the vision, and most people teach you need to set a goal. I don't necessarily believe you just need to set a goal. Yes, goals are important, but what's more important than goals are habits. So the secret of living a brilliant life is hidden in the daily routine. Show me your habits, I'll show you your future. So, habitually, what time do I get up in the morning? What is the first thing that I do when my feet hit the ground? What's the first thing I read? What's the first thing I listen to? You have to work out your potential every single day by reading, listening, and then doing. And that habit becomes hardwired. That brings you the results that you want. So, what calls do I need to make today? How do I move an inch closer to what I am trying to accomplish by taking the daily steps to make it happen?
The daily steps take it hat, man. I love it. You know, you built this whole concept of helping folks maximize their potential. It's kind of what you're doing. We're going to get into that in just a few moments. But I want to ask a question from a different perspective, and it might get the same type of spin on it. But this whole concept about be inspired, be intentional, and be confident. But you're really interesting because you say you can do that at work and you can do it at
Yes.
home. Let me say it again. You can be inspired, you can be intentional, and you can be confident at work and at home. You don't have to live two separate lives. Take a moment to talk about that, please.
So when you're inspired, the word inspired or inspiration comes from when you go to the dictionary, it means to breathe life into. So wherever you show up, if you're in a work environment, business environment, how do you breathe life into that environment? Through the work that you do, through the communication that you have, through the projects that you work on, through whatever you're executing. Are you the light in the midst of darkness? Are you the yes when everyone is saying no? Are you the positive when there's a negative? That's inspiring. It's coming alongside your team members who literally have been rocked by uncertainty, volatility, complexity, and ambiguity. You inspire and breathe life into that situation to begin to show them, have you thought about this? Will you consider that? Once you are inspiring, then you become intentional, and intentionality has everything to do with consistency, how you show up, what are the things that people can count on you for. And when people know that you are intentional about being consistent in making them better, making a job better, making a business better, making a situation better, then it builds your confidence, because what you begin to understand, when I have confidence in the future is created in the present. So I show up in the present inspired, intentional, confident to be the difference that makes a difference.
You know, take a moment to talk about leadership. One of the things you do in Shift Your Brilliance is you talk about the term being a leader. Obviously, you got to be a leader of one before you can be a leader of many. But in the context of leadership, which is huge, talk about leading remote teams. Talk for a moment, because folks right now, they're leading themselves, but they're also leading a team that they can no longer walk in the morning, at least where we are right now, and have a cup of coffee with, right? So take a moment to talk about, one, the importance of leadership and Shift Your Brilliance, and then maybe one or two ideas they can do, because I know you work with companies that are leading remotely as well.
So let me look at this from a few different angles. The first thing that I invite leaders to recognize is that the job of a leader is to invite men and women on a journey to discover the leader within themselves while they're following you. So, in other words, a leader can never take people to a place that he or she has not been themselves. All right, that's big 30,000 foot understanding of what does it mean to lead. Now, let's unpack that. Leaders leading remote teams have to be empathetic. In other words, coming alongside men and women who have been totally dislocated, displaced, sheltering in place, quarantined, working remote, kids at home, spouse or partner or significant others at home. Being empathetic simply starts with, how are you doing? How's it going? What is it that I can do to serve you? Secondly, being authentic to tell them, here's where the company is on Monday. By Wednesday, it may change, if not on Tuesday. And by Friday, we might do something completely different than how we started the beginning of the week. But what I am going to do as a leader, I'm going to tell you what I know, and I'm going to be honest with you. That's the authenticity, because where there is no communication, people fill in the gap and they make things up. The third thing is a leader being intentional to bring men and women together remotely to say, what's right about us, what is working instead of what's not working. And how do we now see problems as really opportunities? And we language things in such a way where people are like, okay, we know how to shift our brilliance and begin to adapt to where the world is going, not where the world once was before COVID-19.
You know, for those folks that are listening, they're thinking to themselves, this is hot. This is really good, Shay. I know you're going to ask him in a minute what his number one key to success is. I got it, Shay. And I know you're going to ask him in a minute what his number one idea he learned from his mentor. So he'll close out and answer those two questions, his key to success and his number one idea from a mentor that he's learned he's going to pass to us. But at the same time, we're wondering, how do we connect with this guy? Like, you know, he's listening, we're listening to him, we're talking to him now. Number one, Shay, what type of folks does he work with now? Because he does work with corporate clients, he does work with organizations, he does work with entrepreneurs. So how do we connect with him, and who does he work with now? Can we stop for a moment? Can you answer that question, and I'll come back and we'll bring it down home just with the last 2 or 3 questions?
Yeah, I work with men and women who are looking to break through to the next dimension. And notice I said dimension and not level, because when you study string theory, there are 8 to 10 levels in one dimension. So I work with men and women who understand that they have a dimensional gift within them, and they want to literally catapult, quantum leap to that next level. I help cut down their learning curves by taking my 18-year journey of how I worked at Disney, and 18 years ago, I turned down 4 jobs, a senior director position with Learjet to head up all customer care for Learjet owners in the world. And for the last 18 years, I've worked with almost 2,000 companies in 49 countries. Right now, I'm in London today as we are talking. And so I help them understand, how did I go from Disney to doing this full time? But then what are the key mistakes and failures that I learned from, and build not just success, but significance. And there's a difference. So I teach them and cut down their learning curve through the 10 books that I've written and the 3 online courses we have to say, here's how you do it. But I coach them to their brilliance. And obviously they can find me at simontbailey.com, T for terrific.
The site is www.simontbailey.com. The T is for what again?
Terrific.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Why would I expect anything less? Why would I expect anything less? All right, you know, one of my favorite questions asked every time is, what's your number one key to success? Now, you've probably learned 20,000 plus ideas. You teach, I don't know how many ideas on success. But if you had to say, Shay, this is just one of the keys to my success that allows me to be successful and the folks I work with to be the most successful, what principle comes top of mind? And kind of elaborate on that, please.
The number one principle is the way up is down. When I understand the way up is down, it's never about me, but it's about we. The way up is down is simply realizing that I serve humanity through giving, not just taking. The way up is down is making it about you to understand when I serve you, it's not just about hearing you, but it's listening to you, because hearing is a courtesy, but listening is a compliment. When I understand the way up is down, it's never about the accoutrements of success, the house, the cars, the money in the bank, all of those things. Yes, they are important and they're nice, but how am I ensuring that I'm helping the least, the last, the lost to level up? When I understand the way up is down, how do I give a hand up instead of a hand out? So, deep principle, critically important, that it's taken me some 50 years to really understand this, but this is something that I pass on to people when I coach them to their breakthrough.
We're going to close up with one of our favorite questions, which was going to be a mentor, but I'm going to shift that because we're talking about champions, and I'd like for you to give your definition of what is a champion, number one, and number two, what is one or two principles that a champion displays, not only for themselves but for the folks that they're around. And so the final question I have for Simon T. Bailey, who you can find over at www.simontbailey.com. You can go over to www.simontbailey.com. Follow the instructions on that website. Just follow the instructions, and it'll take you directly to him or someone inside his organization who'll be able to put you in the right direction. But Simon, the word champion. We're talking about comeback champion. We're talking about champion nation. Let me spread the question and give it to you again. Number one, what's one idea that you do after you had a setback? That's number one. And then, because this is about comeback. And then number two, your definition of a champion, man, and the principles that a champion displays. Thanks a lot for being here, man. We appreciate it. You're amazing. I'm going to turn over you so you can close out the folks with your final thoughts. Thanks a lot, my friend.
So, in the words of Mike Murdoch, champions look at what they're going to, while losers look at what they're going through. Champions have the ability to see the possibility of what can become instead of what isn't currently happening. When a person has a champion mindset, they begin to recognize that the greatest time, the greatest period in history is to recognize there's never a perfect time to become the person you might have been. So they look at this time and recognize this is not a do-over. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is the moment that I've been waiting for. And they wake up every single day as if this may be the last day on earth, and they leave everything on the floor. That's a champion. So if there's one critical thing that I invite you as we close this out to really think about, am I ready to become the champion that is operating brilliantly and moving away from average living, average results to create the future in the present? Because that's what champions do. They look at what they're going to instead of looking at what they are going through.